So, and this might be an odd question, but so how do you make that? Because I agree. I mean, there is that point where eyes glaze over and people are like, they get kind of technology overload. How do you make that consumable? Do you make an effort to make that consumable for an executive who maybe, let me just say it, maybe has a short attention span for that type of thing? I mean,
that's what I was going to ask, Catherine. What prizes do you give out to people?
Listen,
understand it once you're explaining it.
I think you just, I mean, I just, not to like repeat the features versus benefits, but it's really that element, right? It's almost like, I don't like the term like sales consultant. It's more like we're just consultants, right? Whatever role you are, you're a consultant in your field. And so helping people understand, a lot of times it's like the best expert in the field that I know, like if they're an expert in their field, is because they can explain what they do at like a third grade level, right? To me, you're an expert when you can do that. If you can write a 90-page paper on all this and you can get really, these are all the details, like, okay, cool, you're really smart in your field. But then if you can take that same paper and break it down so that I can understand like physics, then I can be like, oh, okay, well, that's actually not that hard. And so I do think that there's, sometimes I'll explain it to a client and it's like a little bit of doing it multiple times and having those mistakes where I wait for their eyes to glaze over and I make a joke about it, right? Like, oh crap, like you're looking at me how I talk to my tax and accountant, like this is, I've lost you. And even then, like, it's like taking breaks. Like I usually try and get clients to tell me like, are you overwhelmed yet? Are you burnt out? So it's kind of a balance of both, but I do think it's just really explaining in a concept of like, what do you care about? Like getting them to explain what they care about. They don't care a lot of times about, what I found is that they don't care about what has like the fastest speed. I mean, sometimes they do, but sometimes they care about what has the most accessibility, what has the most, like, where can I work from anywhere? And then, but, we talk about like coders, for example, coders, if they lose a couple seconds, that's terrible, right? Seconds to them are measured in dollars because of how much a developer might cost. Whereas for somebody else who's in sales, like they're okay losing internet occasionally, but they need to make sure they have access to all their presentations from anywhere in the world when they're traveling. So it's just, I think, getting really clear about, well, what do you care about? And then that's our job as translators, right? Like, okay, let's figure out how technology can be applied there.
When you're having those discussions and you're working with somebody who's a business who's contemplating kind of the new landscape, and maybe even after this, we talk a little bit about the new landscape of small to medium-sized business, but when you're talking with them, how often is their first line of question or their first concern cost versus performance? I guess it's interesting because some customers, what does it cost? What does it cost? Their performance. So I guess I'm just interested from your perspective, when you're working with somebody who's contemplating really changing the whole landscape of their business. It's an evolution, right? We're going from, a tadpole floating in the, the ethereal ooze of the planet to walking on land, right? That's the next step. So I guess, like you said, at what point, what does cost come into it? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, cost always matters. Like, I mean, as much as I wish it didn't, because I can be like, but it's really cool. Like, the cost matters. Like, so I think when you're looking, the problem with a lot of these new technologies, like think of just Microsoft 365. Everybody bashes, I feel like, on subscription models. Oh, I pay for Netflix and I pay for whatever, Amazon Prime, and I'm paying for Disney Plus. Like,
I literally just had a customer do that. Yep.
Right. And so we list these subscription models and then we say, like, I just can't believe I'm paying for all this. But then you think of it and you say, okay, well, what did we used to pay for cable, like a cable package? And then that cable package was on one device that you sat on your living room couch, or you paid extra to have it on a different bedroom, in a different room in the house. And then you paid extra for that. And then you had a box there. And I mean, maybe you were lucky enough to have DVR and actually record stuff. So, I mean, you were so limited that the cost is important, but cost per value is the problem. Is like a lot of times we are small businesses, whoever, don't fully realize the value of something. I talk to a lot of customers who are in Google Workspace and, ask, what do you do in it? I use email and calendar. That's it. Well, so what are you doing for, why are you paying for Dropbox over here? Is there a compliance issue or box? Is there something about compliance or HIPAA? Like, what are you trying? No, right? It's just really application and understanding what Google Workspace can do. So the value that they perceived of Google Workspace was a lot lower than what it really is. So cost does matter, but it's really that cost per value. So I think in technology, I mean, how many tools are being used that we're not really using the whole value of that tool? We're not using its full potential.